Hello everyone, and welcome to the Basics of Photoshop. My name is Queenwee, and I'm a graphic designer and illustrator. I use this program for design, photo editing, and painting, and I've been using it for about 5 years. So, let's get started. I'm using Photoshop CC. It's the subscription version. It's all new and up-to-date and fancy. They show you all of your recently opened files and videos down here where you can learn something. I never click on those. I used to use CS6, so I can tell you what's different. This obviously doesn't show up in CS6, it's just a blank screen. Let's go to File, New to create a new canvas. This is some basic stuff. Anyone who's used MS Paint knows what File Open is, but here we go. This doesn't exist in older versions, it's just for CC, and it shows you all the presets. On CS6 at least, the presets were a Dropbox over here, instead of on the side like this. It also has a bunch of templates. I've never used any of these, but they look really cool, so maybe I will one day. You can title your file right off the bat. Choose what you're going to be using to measure, pixels, points, inches. I'm going to do pixels, set the width to whatever you want, set the height to whatever you want, and then the landscape and portrait buttons, just toggle the width and height back and forth. We're going to make it portrait. And we're going to change the resolution to 72 because I want to make a web file. Or let's just pretend that I'm making a web file. Your resolution needs to be smaller for web because it would take too long to load if it was 300. 72, it's just right. And RGB color, that is web color. But if you were making a print document, say a flyer or a card or a t-shirt design, you're going to want to do a much higher resolution. Probably 300, and CMYK. CMYK is just optimized for printing. It's a different mode of mixing color. If you tried to put a CMYK image on the internet, then it would look much different than what you were designing. All the colors would be messed up because your browser just doesn't know how to read those colors. That's why you need to use RGB for web documents, and 72 so it doesn't take too long to load. That's all the important stuff. The background, you're going to want it to be white. And create. Here's our canvas. It shows up as a nice white document. Some people, before they start to paint or before they start to design, they like to add a gray background, just because it's easier to draw and paint on gray. Here's my little guy. There's my painting. Oh, let's go back. The undo button, which I'm hitting right now, is a Control-Alt-Z pressed at the same time. For Mac users, it's probably Command-Alt-Z, but I use a PC, so I'm going to focus on the PC shortcuts. Sorry, Mac users. There's enough tutorials for you guys out there already. The toolbar is where all the tools are, right on the side, right here. The default tool is just the cursor. It moves stuff around. You can click and drag, you can, hold. The second is the marquee tool. I'm just going to go through the tools that are the most important. I think the marquee is important because it lets you quick select anything to move it or get rid of it. We deleted that whole thing. Oh, deleted that whole thing. If you accidentally did something and you want to delete all of it, quick marquee tool, delete. that's, you know, or you could just delete the layer, but let's just say there was other stuff on the layer that you wanted to keep. That's what the marquee does. It just makes a nice box. There's also a circle version, and I think a line version. Whatever. I don't use these much. It's just, I just use it for the quick selection. There's also the lasso tool for selecting things. If you just make a circle around it, then you select it and you can get rid of it. Or move it, whatever you want to do. Yeah, like make a selection and then take the cursor and then you can move it. Kind of like snaps to that selection. And if you wanted to make something else that was exactly the same, except a different color, then you can do that with a selection. Now you have, oh, now you have two. This is the crop tool, self-explanatory, everyone knows how to crop. If you've used Microsoft Office and probably MS Paint, can't really remember what MS Paint does. Eyedropper tool lets you select any color on the canvas. Very helpful. This is a spot treating tool. We don't need to use that. Now this is the brush tool. You're going to want to get acclimated to this if you're a painter or a designer, obviously. Designers need to use brushes too. It comes with a bunch of these default brushes, which are actually pretty nice. I downloaded a bunch of personal ones though. Let's just start with a simple round brush. Now, I need a color first. Here's what the round brush gives you. It's pretty simple, just a tube-like object. But you need to go over here to brush customization to be able to change anything about that. Now, it's going to be this little icon that looks like a bunch of brushes in the cup, but if it doesn't show up for some reason, or if you're on an older version, then you can go to Window and then find it. It's going to say Brush or Brush Presets. The first thing you want to do, if you're a painter and you're using a tablet, is click Shape Dynamics and then go to Pen Pressure where it says Control. And you can also go to Transfer and add pen pressure if you would like. You don't have to. And what that does is it makes it so if you're holding down softly, it'll give you a short, soft stroke. And if you're holding down really hard with your pen on the tablet, then it'll give you a thick stroke. So if I just tiny stroke, thicker stroke, thickest stroke. You're definitely gonna want this. You can't paint, you can't draw in Photoshop without this. That's why a tablet is so important. Oh wow, I'm just gonna get rid of that. That's pretty much all you need to know for tools. I mean, not tools, brushes. There's the opacity, which is useful sometimes. And then there's the hardness, which you'll be able to change by putting it to 0 will make it really soft. Putting it to 100 make it really hard, obviously. Oh, size is also here. I don't really think about size too much anymore because I just use the shortcut, which is the brackets, the the square brackets that look like this on your keyboard, those are what you have to press. This one is for small, and this one is for large. So if I press the right bracket, it'll get collectively bigger until my Photoshop crashes. And then the small one, it'll get smaller. It's pretty simple. As long as you learn that, then it'll be really easy for you to paint in Photoshop without having to go up here and changing the size every time. This allows you to get a more precise and accurate size for whatever you need. Now that I covered that, you're not going to need the clone stamp. I think this is the clone stamp. I never use it. This is the history brush. I never use that either. This is the eraser. Like I said, with MS Paint, you should know what an eraser is. It's going to erase it. It's going to erase. But you can also use a brush, custom brush for erasing, which is pretty cool. You can also change the shape dynamics and all that. So it's basically just like the brush, except you're erasing instead of, you know, painting. This is a funky brush. I don't know why I grabbed that. That's pretty cool. I don't even remember where I got these brushes. But there we go. There's the erase tool. Oh, this is the bucket fill. Everyone loves the fill bucket. But if you hold down on it, you can get to the gradient tool, which is really cool. Yeah, you can hold down on most of these tools and then get like alternate tools. There's the pencil tool and the mixer brush, which is really helpful. I'm not going to talk about that today. That needs a tutorial in and of itself. But yeah, let's go back to the gradient tool. You basically choose your gradient. You can choose whatever colors you want, but you know, I like that one, so I'm going to use this gradient. This is a custom orange. Make a new one. And once that's all set, you either click one of these little icons. This obviously means a linear path. It'll be linear one side to the other. This is a radial path, so it'll go outward. It's kind of hard to see, but gives you the idea. And then there's some other stuff, like the diamond path. This one's pretty cool. But enough of that. These two need their own tutorial. The pen tool definitely needs its own tutorial. It's a really helpful tool that allows you to make these basic shapes. It's an awesome tool, and it's really hard to learn. There's definitely a learning curve, but I will teach you. This is the type tool, which is really awesome. Oh, I think my text is really tiny. Yeah, I think text is gonna need some kind of tutorial because it has like a lot of text capabilities. Oh, come on. It's kind of lagging. Just the basics. You can make text with this tool. You can change the size. You could change the font right here. Here's all my lovely fonts. You can change the alignment. Sadly, there's no justify alignment. That makes me really angry. But hey, if you need to make justified page layouts, then you really should be using InDesign, which I'm starting to learn, but You know, Photoshop is just my baby. It's a great program. What's next? Not really sure what this does. I don't think it does anything. These are the shape tools. You can make a circle, an ellipse. If you hold down the shift button while you're making it, it'll be a perfect circle. You can make more shapes. There's a rectangle, a rounded rectangle, polygon line, and a custom shape tool. Let's just talk about the custom for 1 second. These are all these shapes you can make. You can even make a copyright symbol. If you need to make a copyright symbol, you could do that without having to go to Google and type in copyright symbol. But real quick, if you hold down shift, then this will be a perfect square. Holding down shift is very important for Photoshop, you will discover. Let's fill this up with some color. No, that's a stroke. There we go. And then we can adjust it over here. We can actually give it round corners if we want to, using this. Just set it to any number, and it'll round off the corners. It's a nice little square. You can do a lot with shape tools. Not really going to get into it, but there you go. Right now I'm just going to show you how you can change the size of the shape tool by hitting free transform. That'll be in the edit menu right here, but we're not going to use that. We're going to do Control T or Command T if you're using a Mac, and just make that smaller. Now we can make it pretty much any size we want, but if you want to preserve the shape and preserve the quality, you're going to want to use shift again. Hold down shift and it'll make sure that your file, your picture, your symbol will stay the same scale, same proportions. It won't get all wonky and messed up. It'll be the same square, just smaller. There's also these other transform tools. Perspective, which allows you to get some cool perspectives. Trapezoid now. Rotating. Yeah, it does nothing because it's a square. Flipping, vertical and horizontal, these are important. When you're painting, you're gonna want to like flip your canvas, usually. Let me put something else in here. The way to flip your canvas is to go over to transform and go to flip horizontal. Oh no, sorry. We gotta go to image and image rotation, flip canvas horizontal. That flips the whole canvas, not just the layer. And you're going to want to do this when you're painting to check horizontal on the other side to check your proportions. So there's actually a way that you can create your own hotkey for that command. You can look up the tutorial yourself, but I might make a tutorial about it in the future. But yeah, it's out there. I press F7 and then it flips the canvas for me. It's really helpful when you're painting. And even when you're doing design, you know, I'm doing some topography and everything. You want to make sure things line up. Now, that's pretty much all the tools I want to cover. There's also the color wheel, or the color box, that you can click on, and it gives you the color picker. It's pretty self-explanatory. Like I said, if you've ever used any program, then it's going to be roughly this. There's super saturated on one side, gray and black and white on the other side. Lighter up here, darker down here. And like all of this is pure black, and then just this top hand corner is pure white. You'll see it says hex code FFFFFFF and 00000. That means pure white and pure black. Whew. Moving on. In order to make a new layer, let's just delete this one. I want to show you all of these tools down here because these are really helpful. There's the trash can, which does exactly what you want it to do. Deletes a layer. And this is, by the way, this is your little layer box. It's gonna show you all your layers. Look at all these layers. Beautiful. How you make a new layer is just by pressing this button. Right next to the trash can, it looks like a page that's being flipped. And that just creates a new layer. It says layer number 46 or whatever. You can double click that and change the layer to whatever you want to change it to, I guess. And then hit enter to lock that in. You can also go to layer new, but you know, I never learned to do that. It takes a lot longer than just hitting that button. Oh, there's a lot of things you can do with a layer. Here's the opacity over here, which is, if you know what opacity is, it's how transparent a color is. 100% opacity, it's not transparent at all. If you move it down, it gets more and more transparent, more and more lighter, and it would reveal whatever's underneath it. So if we have this blob, and then if we have a blob right underneath it, that's a different color. Then if we bring the transparency down, you're going to be able to see that blob that's underneath. It's going to create some kind of effect. What's going to create a better effect though are these blend modes, which are just really, really cool ways to superimpose a layer onto another layer. I'll show you what I mean. There's all these different settings and they do different things. Most of them, I think all of them, you're going to be able to see the layer that's underneath. But what's happening is that the top layer is doing something to the bottom layer. Like either changing the color, like you see, or changing both of their colors. They're just really cool light tricks, you know. And you're definitely going to want to use those if you're blending and color treating, then you're going to want to use that. Right next to the layer button is the group button, which allows you to just keep things neat and organized, or to put layers together that you don't necessarily want to merge, you just want them to be together. I don't know why I did that. So to get all of these layers into that group, all you have to do is click on one layer, hold shift, and then click on the last layer. That'll select all 4 layers, so you can just drop that into the group. Now they're all in there. You can hit this caret to make it smaller. Now look at that, it's a lot more organized, and if I did have something in the layer, I'd be able to move it around and moving them all together. I mean, you could also select all of these and then hit the group button. That'll just make it a group. But, you know, gotta show you both ways. Next, these are fill layers. The first 3 things are fill layers. The rest of these are adjustment layers. Now if you type in solid color, it's going to fill up the whole page with a solid color. It basically does the same thing that the paint bucket does. It just does it in a smarter way. And there's the gradient fill layer, which just does the same thing, adds a gradient. Oh, that's beautiful. And the pattern fill. What is that? That looks like pasta. Anyway, you can choose one of these patterns and it'll give it to you. You can change the scale to make it bigger or smaller. And yeah, let's see what these blend modes do. Oh, that's not bad. See, one thing blend modes allow you to do is like blend textures onto things. Instead of just taking this texture of the pattern and lowering the opacity, that gives you that kind of effect. It allows you to blend that texture onto the background without suffering, without the quality suffering. Like you can see the light quality and the color quality is the same with that texture. So it's just a smarter way of, doing that. The rest of these, like I said, are adjustment layers. And these are a lot easier to use just up here because they have all the icons. You're going to recognize a lot of these if you've ever used photo editing software. There's brightness and contrast. Obviously, if you edit your selfies on your phone, you're going to know what this is. So let's just edit the hue and saturation, which is one of the adjustments. You can change the color. That's a nice color. And then you can change how saturated it is, super saturated or super gray, almost a complete gray, and then the lightness and darkness as well. Oh, let's keep it right there. Curves are a really fun way of messing with light and contrast. There's vibrance. Channel mixer and photo filters, which is just a really precise way of changing colors. Same thing with selective color. Selective color is one of my favorite tools. You can actually choose any one of these colors. I'm going to choose green since there's mostly green on my canvas, and you can take that color and adjust it like just that color, basically. It's not changing the white really. It might change the other colors a little bit, but mostly it's going to change the greens, and you can give them like a different effect, a different quality. If I used reds, then it would barely affect anything at all. I don't think anything's moving because there's absolutely no red in the canvas. So the selective color is just a really, really precise tool for getting exactly the colors you want. There's a lot more. Black and white just makes it black and white. You can add a filter to change the contrast of that. Invert inverts the colors of the whole thing. Beautiful. And then there's some other stuff that I never use that nobody ever needs to use. There's threshold. Who needs this? All it does is like ruin the quality of your piece. And then posterize. What is this? Posterize? I don't even know how to say it. It's so useless. I mean, I guess some people would use it. But there's that. Gradient map down here sort of does the same thing that a gradient filter does, a gradient layer does, except slightly different. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same. You can use either one. It's just that the gradient map comes with its own layer mask, which we're going to talk about, because that is the next icon, the layer mask icon. It looks like a little white box with a black circle in the middle. You can add a layer mask to any layer, like this one. And what it does is allow you to change that layer without getting rid of it completely. Black, you need a black brush. You don't have to use black, but if you want to erase something completely, then you use black. And that just kind of erases the layer. Yeah, see, this is the bottom layer, so that's why there's all that a checkered pattern underneath, because that's what's underneath documents, just a checkered pattern. But if we used it on this gradient map right here that we just made, then it would allow us to control where that gradient map hits and where it doesn't. But the neat thing about this is that you're not erasing. So you can always just go back with the white brush and bring all that back. Or, you know, do something cool like this. Let's just bring it all back. I'm just introducing you to layer masks. You're not really going to understand what they're for now, but once you get into designing or painting, you're really gonna know, you're really gonna understand what that's for. And last but not least, there's the effects. It shows up as an FX icon, and this will allow you to do a lot of weird things. It's mostly useful for text. Obviously, you're not going to want to give your painting a bevel, but you know, you can if you wanted to. Look at this. If you know what a bevel is, it's like, I don't know, shading, I guess. This is a stroke. Stroke just means outline, shadows. That's pretty cool. I use shadows and glows sometimes. Color overlay is really cool. If you made a mistake with a color or you want to change a color, you can just go back and change that color to whatever you want. Or you can use a clipping mask. Here's what a clipping mask is. Well, it's not really a mask, it's clipping layer. You open a new layer directly above the layer you want to work with, and then you right click, create clipping mask. That will make sure that whatever is on this layer will snap to that layer. So without the clipping mask, you would just be doing that. And no, you want this color to be in the shape of that object that was below. So you add a clipping mask to make that possible. These are going to be really cool. You're definitely going to want to use those. Paint Tool SAI has the same kind of concept, and so do a lot of programs out there. So hopefully you aren't a newbie to clipping masks. They're really great. If you wanted to put like a pattern texture onto this blob, then you can do that. So yeah. Now that we know a lot of the tools, I'm just going to show you a few other small things that you're probably going to want to know before you start Photoshop. I'm just going to open a random file, and I'm going to show you how to get this image onto that canvas. If you've got like an outside resource or image that you want to pull in, then this is how you do it. Now, A lot of people who I've met, who I've gone to school with at my college, they don't get this. They don't know this, and I think it's the easiest thing. It's like step number 1. So you're gonna want to know this before you can design. All you have to do is take your cursor, make sure you're on the cursor tool, click that image, hold it, don't let go of the mouse or the tablet or whatever, drag it over to the tab of your canvas, and then drag it down to your actual canvas. You'll see the white borders appear. You're going to want those to appear. If those don't appear, then you're not doing it right. And now you can drop it. Now remember, you have to keep holding it until you drop it onto the canvas. Now, I know this probably sounds really basic to some of you, but honestly, I've known a lot of people who struggle with this. They don't know how to do it and they don't understand it when I try to teach it to them, so I want to make sure that you guys get this down, because it's really easy to just move this over there. I don't know how else you would do it. Maybe there's like some kind of place button. I don't know. I know that people use other methods, but those methods are wrong. This is the easiest way to do it. There's also, I'm gonna pull that image back. You can also set up your workspace so that it's, go to Window, Arrange, and set it up so that it tiles all things vertically. Now you see what this does? It shows you one file right next to the other. This will be super, super helpful for designers who are working on a project that has more than one document involved. It's also helpful for painters who want to do some kind of portrait or figure study, or object study or form study. If I wanted to paint this girl right here, then this is how I would look at her and do that. So, you know, really handy. Just go to Window, Arrange, Vertical. Let's get rid of that. Ooh, I'm just gonna talk about the filters for 1 second, just to give you an idea, just to let you know that the filters are there. These do a bunch of cool things, so I suggest playing around with this. There's blur, which obviously blurs your object. Gaussian blur makes it like super soft. You can make it less soft with the radius, or you can make it super unidentifiable, because why not? There's also sharpen in here somewhere. You know what sharpen is. And you could add noise, which is basically like the stuff that you see on a TV that doesn't work. And then there's a filter gallery, which has a bunch of these weird filters that you're really not gonna need. But hey, it's there. There's also liquify, which is really important for painters, and somewhat important, well, it's not really important for designers, but it is if you're going to do photo editing, because this is how you get the models' faces to look perfect. Liquify has been updated for CC, and it includes like facial awareness, which I don't really like. It just kind of ruins things. But what you can do with Liquify is that you have a brush. You can use the brackets to make it smaller or bigger, and it basically allows you to control warp your image. If you pull that in, it'll be thinner. If you pull it out, it'll be larger. And you know, you use this when you're painting and you accidentally did the wrong proportions or the wrong anatomy, so you go in and quick fix the anatomy, you know, it's not going to affect the quality of your work that much. Unless you like overdo it, then, you know, the quality is just going to be in shreds. But it's a really cool way to just adjust the fine little details, the shapes. Really important for painters. And you know what? I think that's all I'm going to give you for today. Thank you for joining me for this tutorial. There will be more to come. This was just an introduction. Next time we're going to be focusing on a specific aspect to the program. We're going to actually create something instead of just playing around with blobs. So stay tuned.